Hello again, this is Donna with Sparrowstudios7, bringing you I Read and I Learn about Genesis 4, and some commentary on it. I hope you guys are having a great night. So, the first verse, chapter 4, verse 1, has a note. It talks about something kind of sensitive, but I felt like it was an important differentiation to make, so I'm gonna just go ahead and read it for you guys. So, as we read in the first video, the first verse of chapter 4 reads, "Now Adam had sexual relations with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, 'With the Lord's help, I have produced a man.'" Now, what the Feeny wants to play still. Apologies. That's my dachshund. You'll see him in and out of the videos at some point. Probably. So, the note literally reads, had sexual relations, literally knew. In certain contexts, the Hebrew term meaning to know is an idiom for sexual knowledge of another person. This is seen in chapter 4:17, chapter 19:33, and verse 35. Okay, so it is never used of animals which mate by instinct. With the Lord's help, Eve fulfilled her God-given role of procreation despite the negative effects of the fall, which we talked about yesterday, and the negative effects are found in verses 16 and 20, chapter 3. I have produced Cain, the Hebrew word of Cain, sounds like the Hebrew term kana, that mean produce or acquire. I'm probably butchering the Hebrew, but I'm trying my best. So the name Cain literally means produce or acquire. His brother Abel, the Hebrew Hebel, means breath, vapor, or meaningless, anticipating his tragically brief life. Okay, so what's interesting about the offerings between Cain and Abel is that God does not specifically say that it has to be an animal sacrifice at the beginning of this chapter. There is no mention of animal sacrifice past what God did to clothe Adam and Eve in the previous 3 chapters. To give you context, that was at the end of chapter 3, verse 21, "And the Lord God made clothing from animal skins for Adam and his wife." So, past that, there was no mention in the beginning of chapter 4 that it has to be an animal sacrifice. And there's a note explaining why Cain's offering of vegetables was rejected by God. So I'm going to read that for you now. Chapter 4, verse 3, the note on that. "There was nothing wrong with offering grain to the Lord." You can see in Leviticus 2, chapter 2:14, and Deuteronomy 26, 2-4, where this is done. But Cain only brought a token gift, some of his crops, whereas God requires the first and best, as we see in Exodus 23:16, verse 19, chapter 34, 22-26. Cain's heart attitude made his offering. Feeny, that's not yours. heart attitude inferior to Abel's. So I'm going to read that again because Vinny interrupted us. Cain's heart attitude made his offering inferior to Abel's. You can see context for that in Hebrew 11:4. So essentially, what happened was Abel picked the finest lamb out of all his flocks, and said, "Here you go, God. This is my offering to you." While Cain picked out random fruit and grain, theoretically, according to the Bible, said some of his crops. He's just like, "This looks good. Here you go, God. Accept me." And because he came with pride and arrogance and not the first and the best, he was rejected, which caused him to get a warning from God, because God did not want the murder to happen. He gave Cain the choice to turn around, walk away, and to stay in his presence. Yesterday, I believe it was, we read the note, it was yesterday, about the cherubim guarding the eastern way of Eden, and that anyone who goes east from Eden is showing pompous arrogance, pride, leaving God's presence. That's what going east in the Bible means. And so after Cain murders his brother and God calls him on it, he moves east from Eden and starts his own nation, where, as we see with Lamech and Ada and Zillah, there's a lot of violence and there's a lot of pride and arrogance and just sin against God. But we still see hope in the chapter with Seth. So even though Cain killed the second kid to ever be born on earth, God gave Adam and Eve a third child named Seth. I'm going to read the note about him. And I'm also going to read the note before about Lamech, because I find this interesting as well. So it says, chapter 4:23 through 24. Lamech's chilling taunt shows the further escalation of sin's effects on humanity. Cain's line had reached a crescendo of violence with Lamech's contempt for life. In his arrogance, he put his deed into poetic verse, punished 77 times. God warned that anyone who tried to kill Cain would experience the full weight of justice. That was done in verse 15 of this chapter. Lamech's declaration that anyone who harmed him would receive an even more severe penalty is claimed to be accountable to no one, including God. And then it goes on to say, in reference to chapter 4:25 through chapter 5:32, which we'll talk about tomorrow, the story returns to Adam and follows the line of Seth, whose lineage led to Abraham and the Israelite nation. It says 4:25 references another son in place of Abel. Cain and Lamech illustrate sin's consequences. The birth of Seth brought renewed hope. So we'll see this later on with, I'm glad that it mentioned Abraham, because we'll also see that there was friction between Abraham. Shh, child, I love you. Wait. It was a dog. So friction between Abraham and his sons, in reference to God's promises. One will represent division, one will represent hope. And we're still feeling the effects of that today. So I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you tomorrow. God bless and good night.